I'm Akil Prince. I'm one of the co-founders of HackerOne, one of the 4 co-founders of HackerOne. I am a hacker, also a software engineer, and I kind of decide between the two. Sometimes I like to break things better, sometimes I like to build things, basically. 2 fun facts. This photo here on the left is a photo of me and my co-founder when we were really young. We know each other since we are 1 year old, so we are also best friends. And at HackerOne, we call each other HackerOnies. HackerOnies is the common mispronunciation of our company name, but it is how we go internally and refer to each other. A couple of our European-based customers, we have Lufthansa, Zalando, Booking.com, but also in the US, a large customer that is using our platform is the US Department of Defense, and very popular tools like Slack, GitHub, or people's morning rituals, Starbucks is using HackerOne to tap into the power of hackers. Then, what is a hacker? But before everybody is now shutting off their phones because hacker in the room, I want to clear up one common misconception, because a lot of people refer to hackers as bad guys. Even the media likes to portray a picture that hackers are really bad. What we call those people that the media talks bad about are malicious attackers or criminals. They're not hackers. In our mind, a hacker is one who enjoys the intellectual challenge of creatively overcoming a limitation. And that kind of clearly captures 2 of the most important things or characteristics that hackers have. To me is, one is extreme curiosity. They suffer from really extreme curiosity, as well as a lot of creativity. That is what keeps them up at night and day. I wanted to show a quick video of to give you an idea of what hackers look like. So let's go here. This is a video of one of our events we hosted in Amsterdam with 15 of our best hackers out there.
Live hacking events are where we bring a HackerOne customer and our most talented hackers into the same space for a 15-hour period where there's a specialized scope and a large cash bounty pool up for grabs.
There's about 15 European-based, highly skilled hackers right here.
It really takes it to a new level when you have that face-to-face connection with these people.
So one of the great reasons of using hacker-powered security is a lot of security systems these days are quite inward-focused. They're generic, whereas this you leverage crowdsource-based security. You go beyond your own IT services and run 24/7 by leveraging the community of hackers.
Hackers themselves want to help each and every company out there.
I think a lot of our challenges today are around convincing people in this idea of a community-based security.
I like to think about stuff, and even when I'm asleep, I sometimes dream about that.
One of the most powerful parts about running a bounty program in general is the huge extension of your security team that these hackers become.
Ultimately, you're going to get some fantastic bugs, some really, really great vulnerabilities from some really talented hackers. But the most important thing, it's about the relationships that you're going to build with some of the most talented, amazing hackers on the platform.
I don't think you really understand how good they are until you start seeing some of the vulnerabilities coming through.
Learning the techniques that these guys use to find stuff, it's just incredible. You can learn so much from them.
I like to hack first because it's fun, but most importantly, I like to hack because it's rewarding, especially with the bug bounty industry. You hack, you report vulnerabilities, and you get paid for it.
In the last year, we've paid over $500,000 to hackers through our live hacking events.
They're already on our platforms and our services that we offer, and at least this way they've been found by the good guys and we've been able to reward them rather than having to deal with the negative consequences of someone malicious finding these vulnerabilities.
It's truly a team effort, a community effort, and it really supports our mission, which is to power the world to build a safer internet. And we all do that together, customer, hackers, and HackerOne.
So that is what hackers look like. Not scary, right? So that is, let's go back into the presentation. So let's start with kind of an industry observation. Security used to be this thing that developers didn't really want to bother with. because it meant that if you introduced a security issue, you got a slap on the wrist. Like that was something bad. You wrote faulty code. A lot of developers didn't like their security teams because all they did was pointing out errors, right? I see this kind of changing. I see a lot more developers are now open to the fact that they are going to make mistakes. I mean, in the end, it's inevitable that you are going to introduce some kind of vulnerability, and that's totally okay. So right now, a lot of developers practice continuous development, which means that we deploy multiple times a day. And every time we deploy new code, we could introduce new security issues. And because we use that model, now you also need kind of security that goes along with that and kind of keeps up with that pace of innovation where we deploy all the time. And it is changing from a model where basically every quarter you would get a slap on the wrist from your pen testing firm that you maybe didn't even know got hired by your boss or your boss's boss. They get much more proactive about security and learn about security and also try to find vulnerabilities at the same pace at which they are developing and deploying new code. But before I dive into all of that, I want to do a little a thing where, like, how would a hacker actually contact you? Maybe the first thing they want to look for is that they Google, do you have a disclosure process? Do you have a responsible disclosure process or something like that? We found that 94% of the Forbes 1000 does not have this, so it's very unlikely that it will actually find something. Maybe the next step they take is they contact your customer support department. Will they know how to deal with a security issue? Very unlikely. I've seen different results here. They could tweet at your CEO, probably not very successful. Email your CTO on LinkedIn, but they have lots of recruiter emails in there already, so probably not very successful either. Or they post it publicly on your Facebook page because they want to get attention. All these scenarios are pretty bad and have a pretty bad outcome. But there's one that is even worse, and that is the most typical action, is if a hacker finds a vulnerability and they cannot find a way to contact you, they might not contact you at all. They might not even try to contact you. One, because of fear. They might fear for what's going to happen. I mean, we come from an era where you would basically, the FBI would kick in the door for this. Like, if you find a vulnerability, you're breaking the law, right? Nobody asked you to. Or they just don't know how to contact you, and they are they're giving up, basically. So one of the best ways to get ahead of that is by embracing hacker-powered security. And there's two formats or two approaches you can take. The most simple form is vulnerability coordination or vulnerability disclosure. Some people call it responsible disclosure. There's lots of different names for the same thing. It's a very reactive approach. You are basically you're publishing to the world what your process is in case someone outside of your organization finds a security issue. How do they email you? How do they submit a form to get in touch with you? The US Department of Defense kind of calls this the see something, say something of the digital world. Some refer to it as rolling out a welcome mat for hackers and promising nothing will happen if they follow the process correctly. I also see this vulnerability coordination is getting more integrated into compliance. Some industries that are really ahead of everybody else is healthcare. This is really important already in healthcare. Automotive, it's becoming really important. But I see a similar transformation coming up for finance. Then on the right side, you have bug bounty programs. Bug bounty programs are much more proactive. It's kind of an extension to your vulnerability coordination program because now you are incentivizing researchers to find and go out and find vulnerabilities for you. You do this by offering them cash. You offer them cash for every single valid finding they make. It's also one of the best ways for engineers to learn about security because you're going to get very practical examples of mistakes you or your teammates have made. So it's a very easy way to learn. Also, saving on penetration testing is a very common use case for bug bounties, especially because you might want to use the results of your bounty program to kind of laser focus your pen testing efforts. If you see that the results from a certain application are really bad and you want to focus more, maybe focus with an external pen testing firm just on that application, it is possible to use the output of your bug bounty to inform those decisions. And it's also the cherry on top of the software development lifecycle. And I want to zoom in on that a little bit. Is how does that actually work? Well, bugs start in development, they also end in development. Might not be in the same cycle, but you might introduce a bug in cycle 1 and 500 cycles later, you find out about them and fixing them. But it's a form of QA, and QA is part of your software development lifecycle, and bug bounties are a continuous form of QA. If you set the incentives right, there's always a hacker out there looking for vulnerabilities. So we practice continuous delivery a lot. We nowadays probably deploy multiple times a day, and the quarterly pen tests are just not going to cut it anymore, because every time we do a pen test, the results are outdated the minute new code goes out the door, and probably pretty literally 5 minutes after your pen test, new code is shipping. So you also want a security solution that is keeping up with that. So you want a security solution that is always out there, kind of like your friendly neighborhood watch, like someone who's always on the lookout. And if you set your incentives right, you will always have hackers looking for vulnerabilities, regardless of where they are in the world. They can be anywhere in the world, and it can be any time, like any time of day. They're always looking, as long as you set your incentives right and attract the top talent. Some programs actually take their bug bounty output much further. They actually might analyze their bug bounty output to inform decisions and mature their security posture overall. One of the common examples is if your bug bounty informs you that there's lots of cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, that might tell you that you have bad coding practices, or maybe you don't have a secure defaults web framework where you build everything on, or maybe there's developer education lacking. It can point to those things that can strategically improve your security. Or in this chart, we can actually see, it's a chart of where the number of XSS vulnerabilities goes down after a certain point, and the size of the reward goes up because they become more scarce. This is a very common approach very common trend you can see if you have something like a systematic fix against cross-site scripting. If you see a lot, then you're rethinking your security architecture, and you might come up with a more systemic fix. And you see it actually working. After July, it tapers off very fast, and you can confirm this way that your efforts are worthwhile because the vulnerabilities are going away. But what if your company doesn't have a bug bounty? Well, for one, sign up for one is really easy, or tell your security team to look into it, because it's very easy to get going. But also, a lot of every engineer around the world can learn about security through our Hacktivity feed. We call it Hacktivity because it's a feed of vulnerabilities that companies on the HackerOne platform and hackers have disclosed together mutually, and other users on the platform upvote these reports, kind of like Reddit or Hacker News or one of those platforms. And companies do that because they benefit from the extreme transparency associated with, to your users, associated with disclosing vulnerability information after it's fixed, of course. And hackers benefit from the fame of having hacked a well-known company, or showing off their skills of what they have found and really putting it on their resume of like, here's a practical example of what I can do. The rest of the world can learn by just looking into these conversations and really seeing the value of what someone found and why that was a vulnerability and how it was fixed. It might inform things you're doing yourself, or a mistake you've made yourself and you learn from it. Here's a quick example of one vulnerability. This is a Bitcoin exchange on the HackerOne platform. They had a vulnerability where they paid $1,000 for an issue where a hacker found a rounding error that resulted in producing money. And they were basically able to incentivize a hacker with just $1,000 to find this bug. And imagine what could have happened if a bad guy would have exploited this, and it could have led to huge financial loss by producing money for free, basically. So these are kind of the examples you'll see on the Hacktivity feed, and you can scroll through it, and the upvotes give an indication of what is the best report to look into, of course. But I would encourage everybody in this room to take a look and kind of have an idea of what hackers are able to find. How do we prevent hackers doing unethical hacks? Kind of the same answer as I gave at the previous talk. It's if you are doing unethical hacks, you are a criminal, and therefore you don't gain anything by being on the HackerOne platform. Like Twitter runs a bug bounty with us, and a hacker that is a criminal might actually want to go to like twitter.com, and they can access anything. by going to HackerOne, they are not finding out anything new about Twitter that isn't already out there on the public internet. So they're not increasing risk. They're just incentivizing the good guys to look as well. A reasonable bounty payout for a small, medium, and major bug. Budget is limited. That's a good question. So actually built into the HackerOne platform is a bounty recommendation tool. And this is based on the severity of a vulnerability, so a small, medium, major bug, and how competitive you want your program to be. So if you want to have a really competitive program, you might want to pay up to $15K for a really severe bug. If you're just starting out and have a small budget and you just want to get going with a couple of hackers, just keep it close to a couple of hackers, you're maybe okay with $1,000 for a major vulnerability. How much beer do you drink at those things? That is actually a good question. Personally, for me, it is, if I drink 3 beers, I reach the top of my creativity. If I drink beyond 3 beers, no, it's not going to work anymore. So 3 beers for me is very, very common. But yeah, there is lots of alcohol involved in hacker events. That is a good observation. How do we compare ourselves to the usual pen test providers? A pen test provider is going to be paid for by effort, not for results. So in our model, hackers get paid for results. So that is already a difference. But what will allow you, with a pen test firm, you can go very deep into something because you can give them details about your architecture. You can give them credentials to go very deep into the system and kind of do a layered approach. A bug bounty is basically all black box. The only thing you will give them is, hey, this is our website. Our website is called twitter.com. Let us know if you find something. So it's a different approach. The biggest bug bounty fail you have seen, and what would you have done to fix it? What is the biggest bug bounty fail? That is a very good question. I actually don't know about any major bug bounty fails. Like the most common fail is a bag bounty, actually, where someone reports something minor and begs for money. And that is not something we actually tolerate. But